listen to me now. It's YouTube. It's YouTube. It's the key. I'm too soon. You're right about the Snyder Verse. You were always right about it. Don't support it. Make this video for us, Axe. You have to make this video for us, Axe.
The Snyder Verse was able to bring a fandom-wide dream of seeing the Justice League united on the big screen to reality, but in doing so caused chaos amongst the entire industry of comic book movies. The vision as a whole was just Warner Brothers' way of competing with Marvel, but even with such horrible studio interference, that doesn't mean Zack Snyder's off the hook with the issues these movies faced. Why I think the continuation of this vision should be put to question is mainly due to the narrative inaccuracy and heavily misrepresentation of Batman and Superman. Zack Snyder does not understand the importance of Batman's no-killing rule. The importance of Batman's rule is what separates him from who he's protecting Gotham from. This Batman represents a Batman who has lost himself within the city of darkness. Batman's rule and him being able to stay true to his morals is what's keeping him from becoming as bad as the criminals he's fighting. This is what allows him to be Gotham's protector, their Dark Knight. Batman's principles are not like a flexible thing that can just change like that. We're talking about what fuels him to continue his purpose as Batman. If Batman is abandoning or just unable to follow his own principles, then the fundamental misunderstanding of Snyder's narrative for Batman's ethos just damages the core of the character. Moving past that, the image of Batman is poorly targeted amongst Gotham City. These movies view him as a symbol of fear to the entirety of Gotham. Batman being represented as the terrifying myth that citizens would just rather be in dangerous environments than be in the presence of him is just such a foul way of representing a Batman on year 20 to the people he saves. Overall, this Batman lacks the image Batman is intended to have, that such a seasoned one should especially have, while is also functionally indistinguishable from a violent vigilante or criminal. And now don't get me started on Superman, the alleged beacon of hope for the Snyderverse. This Superman lacks the aspirational image he's intended to have. Snyder reduced him to nothing but a rage-filled teenager and crazed murderer in a standalone movie, along with killing being something that is showcased by him in the coming future. Rather than portraying Superman as a moral exemplar, Snyder showed him as causing staggering destruction and taking lives in brutal fashion. This just entirely disregards Superman's very calculated mind in battle that ensures civilian casualties and property damage remain in check. Superman is meant to value and protect human life at all costs. Snyder's version murders his enemies without remorse or an attempt to find alternatives. His utter betrayal of Superman's principles damages his role as a virtuous icon. A key part of what makes Superman inspiring and relatable is his human side, his upbringing as Clark Kent. But Snyder's films largely gloss over this in favor of overblown action, by not taking the time to develop Clark outside of the cape and tights. Through this, we lose the heart and empathy that are integral to the character. Superman is meant to care deeply about humanity because he's fundamentally human himself, despite where he's from in his DNA. Snyder mostly portrays him as a detached alien figure floating above humanity. The contrast between the down-to-earth Clark Kent and the godlike Superman is essential to keeping him rooted and personable. Many personal connections Clark has with people that are meant to be key to his personal life are just kept to a minimum. Jonathan Kent and Jimmy Olsen both died in their first appearance to keep the hope and aspiration that keeps Superman or Clark rather grounded out of these movies. Snyder's Superman is also far too serious and humorless. In the comics, Superman often brings a touch of warmth and idealism to the people of Metropolis. He inspires people in part through his sincere heart and good nature. By largely removing Superman's human side and thoughtful temperament, Snyder created an isolationist interpretation. Zack Snyder's fetish for hero worship and breathtaking imagery often overlooks the point of an adaptation, to represent and adapt a character that already exists. He turns the Boy Scout in blue Superman himself into an edgy facsimile of his real self. The Snyderverse is overly grim, gritty, and joyless compared to the uplifting and inspirational tone of DC. Don't get me wrong, I obviously have nothing against darker tone movies, but when it interferes with the tone the hero expresses and what they represent, I think we have a notable problem on our hands. Snyder uses a muted, washed out color palette that sucks the vibrancy from the heroes of DC, specifically from the ones that express the colorful characters and settings that DC has to offer. The constant muted color palette and continuous disaster porn overall becomes monotonous and draining. Snyder focuses on dark, brooding, violent interpretations of these iconic heroes, but these characters are meant to represent more than that. They're meant to represent hope, compassion, and justice, but Snyder plunges them into nihilism and violence without regard for consequences. The Justice League are meant to uplift humanity. They shouldn't be portrayed as the grim Avengers. The importance of comic books being used to create these movies are the use of imaginative worlds and bombastic imagery to bring their pages to life. But Snyder filters out the visual dynamism and very fun energy that can come from some of these characters and seeing these comics adapted to the big screen. These movies include a lot of focus on cool visuals that he forgets to truly capture the thrilling, vibrant, and spirit of DC. The movies that make up the Snyderverse range widely in terms of quality, whether it be from the choice of tone all the way to the accuracy of the source material. This all marked the lack of cohesiveness to the creative vision guiding the franchise. Wonder Woman was able to capture the heart, heroism, and inspirational spirit that was missing from the franchise. It stood as an example of the heights these characters could reach. Zack Snyder's Justice League presented a massive improvement over the bloated theatrical version. Unlike Joss Whedon, Zack Snyder was able to showcase the League as an actual team. He was able to include their camaraderie, their compassion, moments of levity, and just make the team feel more whole. But movies like Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman double down on Snyder's grim, joyless style that just does not work with everything. Movies like Aquaman land somewhere in the middle, presenting mixed bags of inconsistent tone and characterization. Even though Aquaman did little to make his King of the Seas compelling or develop his newfound sense of responsibility. I'm not just gonna act all oblivious to other problems behind the scenes either. Warner Brothers' reactionary attempt to rush their own cinematic universe was fundamentally flawed. In trying to replicate the MCU's success, they hastily skipped the groundwork of slowly building up solo films that organically introduced these icons. This all gave tremendous problems to Zack Snyder and the creation for the vision of the Snyderverse. They immediately pushed towards a Justice League team-up movie, and even just simple but big things such as Batman and Superman sharing the screen. Warner Brothers was so desperate to bring such a collection of characters together to the screen rather than just methodically developing strong solo movies first. This led to a poor foundation at the start, leading for undeveloped characters to be forced into a crossover. No matter which Justice League movie you watch, whether it be the horribleness of the 2017 movie or the amazingness of Zack Snyder's Justice League, I think what can all be agreed upon that degrades Snyder's movie is the need to tell the story of our team coming together while also desperately needing to introduce half the team. With introducing these characters comes the need of establishing their lives and worlds to the DC universe. And such things don't work all in one movie about so many heroes. Warner Brothers was just so clearly concerned with franchise building than just properly introducing these heroes. They even went out of their way and announced full slates of interconnected movies before the first ones even proved to be successful, with almost none of them even happening. If they had slowly built up the key heroes, the shared universe could have been a better fit, but the rush nature caused it to crumble. The result was a messy, rushed cinematic universe that couldn't stand on its own 2 feet. From the Boy Scout in blue, to the Cape Crusader and even the Darkest of Nights, to the fearless leader of compassion, Warner Brothers never needed the MCU to carbon copy. They just should have taken their time building up these heroes properly, but desperate attempts to rush a franchise left the Snyderverse and DC name in complete shambles. A problem that is heavily looked past with the Snyderverse being restored are the problems with our cast. Ben Affleck has come forward saying about how he is done with the role of Batman. Statements like these make the character's future over. Other actors like Ray Fisher have publicly sworn off with DC movies again just due to so many problems with Warner Brothers. These being over the madness of 2017 Justice League, even problems that led to him being cut from The Flash and his own movie getting cancelled. Even demanded an apology which could have led to his return, but it was not given. These bridges have been burned, further limiting who can return. More pressingly, Ezra Miller's mounting legal troubles, including assault arrests and grooming allegations, make it untenable to keep him as the Flash. Whether it be his reputation, which can lead to PR liabilities that Warner Brothers just cannot justify, or the toll on box office scores for his own movie, his reputation now is in the gutter, which would lead to Warner Brothers continuing to bank on such an uncertain cast, which would be a substantial risk. With several key key players definitively out of the picture and others on unstable ground, building future installments as initially envisioned has become borderline impossible. The lack of casting flexibility severely constrains Snyder's vision going forward, as just recasting these roles would only further lead to more problems. Something so great about this collection of movies are the loyal and supportive fans for this cast and crew. People want to see them shine in these roles, which is something that can further take away from what people want if someone is just unable to be there for their portrayals on screen. Between actors departing the franchise, public spats with the studio, and conduct issues off screen, the future for the cast of Snyder's vision has been interfered by circumstances that's just out of his control. The well has been poisoned too far to salvage this entire cast going forward for additional Snyder Verse movies. While the Snyder Verse offered intriguing potential, I just think that the foundations were too flawed to justify further investment. Even Snyder's director cuts, which sure improve on theatrical releases that were disliked by audiences, failed to address core issues baked into the Vision's DNA. The fundamentally misleading approaches to characters, a lack of thematic depth, rushed world building, and emphasis on style over substance cannot be salvaged through minor course corrections. The mounting cast issues practical barriers on completing Snyder's vision as intended.